This presentation is stop doing IT service management and start playing Nintendo. And let's just jump right into it, shall we? So let's just do a level set and talk about where we are today and the state of IT. In today's presentation, I'm going to be talking about enterprise software platforms and how they're changing everything. We'll go into the definition and how that works. I'm going to make parallels to the video game industry. This is a fun presentation. It's very visual. Let's keep it light. I'm going to talk about 8 advantages to the platform model and then 4 things that you can take back to your organizations to help prepare and understand. As a baseline, we're all IT professionals, and IT exists in an organization to solve a business problem, and we do that through providing services. So we deploy these solutions to provide service, but at the end of the day, what IT does is provide a service based on a technical solution to provide value to the business. And as professionals, we go through this process to do that when we deploy these solutions. We go through a procurement, RFP, selection, vendor interview process. We install the thing. We try to make it integrate. We spend our time supporting and training our users, writing documentation, all in its attempt to provide value to the business. That's changing. It's not changing in the near future. It's changing now. That's what this presentation is about. So the way we procure and deploy these solutions is changing. It's changing the platform model. I want everyone in this room to stop thinking about standalone tools, standalone IT service management tools, and start thinking of things from a platform perspective. And I'm going to, again, compare this to video games. So what is this on the screen? This is awesome. This is history. This is an arcade machine. And what an arcade machine did was it played a video game, and it did one game, and it played it very well. It was a standalone investment, and it's an isolated system. So if you were going to expand your arcade, if you were going to grow your capabilities, you had to line up additional arcade machines for the different games. And they're isolated, so you couldn't take Pac-Man and play it in the Dig Dug game because there was no transfer of data between the two. This is a video game deployment model, standalone and separate. Contrast this with the home video console system and this model. So these devices also played video games. They added capabilities, and they did so by inserting cartridges. Remember these? Who was a Atari, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, vintage, even N64? So you put these in. Usually you had to blow on it a couple times, maybe get the game genie. And you could expand the capabilities of your home console and add additional games with those cartridges. What this model gave you was flexibility and the ability to grow, expand, and change. And the Nintendo and the other consoles served as a platform, both for you as gamers, but also for the developers as the new functionality and features were added. So we had these 2 different models for video game deployment. Who won? It's not a question. The console model won. Nintendo begat Super Nintendo. Super Nintendo begat the PlayStations and Xboxes, and they're all evolving into the smartphones that every single person in this room has in his or her pocket. This is going to be the video game console of the future. I don't know how many people might have been playing Golf Clash in the restroom between sessions, but that's where you're playing video games nowadays. It's not going into the arcades. It's from the pocket capability. It's this platform. This model 1. So how do we compare what happened in video games to what's happening in enterprise software today? So on the top, we have our arcades, which are the standalone discrete systems, and the console. And in the bottom left corner is the situation with standalone software tools today. We go out as an enterprise and we get Workday for HR. We'll get ADP for payroll. We'll get IBM for field service or facilities. We'll get some tools from SAP, Infor, Aptio for IT financial management, Marketo for marketing. We've got a whole host of custom Java applications and custom Excel and Access solutions that are standalone, and we in IT try to put together or provide value for that business. So the question is, what is behind the mystery box? What is the equivalent of the console model in video games for the enterprise software space today? And the answer is the concept of these enterprise cloud platforms. Let's set some definitions. So when we talk about a platform, it's the ability to configure a functional software product to the point that there's new applications in it. So it's not tweaking a form, it's not adding a table, it's the ability to expand using its own platform tools and build brand new standalone functionality within software. So it's that configurable, that controllable, has that level of development capabilities. These are enterprise-grade solutions, so this is not something you get off GitHub and hack around with and play. These are generally offered as software as a service, and they're delivered via the cloud, so keep in mind that just means it's someone else's data center, someone else's computer. And they often provide stores, app stores, if you will, to rapidly expand the capabilities and rapidly add the software. And in the modern era, how did this start? This is relatively new, but it began a few years ago, and it really started with Salesforce. So Salesforce, any Salesforce users in the room? A couple hands I see. Salesforce was the original software as a service, no software. You don't need to install anything. You point your browser and you get customer relationship capabilities. Now, the Salesforce platform could do a lot more than that because at the end of the day, it was a browser-based workflow, tasking, form, reporting engine. And people could build additional non-CRM capabilities on Salesforce, and they monetized that and called it the App Exchange. The App Exchange brings in something like $14 billion in revenue just for Salesforce, not what the vendors get today. This is also not amateur league. So ServiceMax, field service and asset management, the company sold to General Electric last year for $1 billion. Aptus, procure-to-pay solution, Kennedy, Enterprise ERP, these are billion-dollar companies that are entirely built on the Salesforce platform, running the Salesforce tool, and are available from the Salesforce cloud. They don't have anything to do with CRM or sales software. Bringing it back to IT, because we're all IT in the room. We don't worry about Salesforce, we worry about these tools. And I'm sure this is familiar to everyone. This is the most recent Gartner Magic Quadrant for ITSM. You'll notice the players on there. And this is my own analysis, so if you work for someone I didn't circle, and I'm sorry. But every player, most of the players here and everyone in kind of the key positions has a platform play, is moving into this platform space, and has solutions that relate to this whole platform concept. So this is going to happen, and it's not going away. It's evolving in this direction, and there's a couple advantages, and these are both advantages, but they're also reasons why this is inevitable and we need to prepare for it. I'm going to go through each of these reasons. The first is really the ability to leverage your investment. Take a step back, sit outside your seat at work, think of your company's perspective, and they're leveraging the investment. So they spent all this time, money, energy, effort to deploy this $1 million software solution. Can I expand it? Yes, you can. You can leverage what you've already invested in and have it go a little bit further. I use the analogy, is it easier to add whipped cream to a dessert or make a whole new dessert? It's easier just to add the toppings. You're able to build faster within these tools with the development capabilities that they have organically with them. And a little caveat to watch out for. See the next couple slides, the power-ups are the good things. The little enemies are what you need to watch out for. And that's planning for a new learning curve. So as these enterprises and you go out and look for new skills to acquire, are you going to be necessarily looking for JavaScript developers, C developers, or will you look for ServiceNow developers, Salesforce developers, Cherwell developers? It's a different skill set. It's going to be a different skill set to manage, different type of people to train, recruit, and lead. Number two is consolidating systems. So it's cheaper and it's easier to manage fewer systems. I hope we can stipulate that. You don't have to juggle as many balls. Generally, you're going to find it from the company's perspective, as there's fewer systems, there's more inertia to be able to expand them further The mitigation for this, the thing you have to watch out for is to have, if you have a single point of failure. So if one system goes down and it supports 30 critical business functions, you have a problem. And as IT professionals, it's going to be part of our job and due diligence to watch out for that. I don't know if there were any Street Fighter 2 fans in here. I loved Street Fighter 2 in the arcade, but I have Ryu and Ken to talk about consolidating systems, because if you're familiar with their power-ups, if you learned the special moves for one, you could use them with the other player. So it's like you mastered 2 characters at once, because again, it's easier and cheaper and faster to have fewer tools to manage. This is an important one. This is through meeting user expectations. So users are going to complain about any new system we implement, but they're going to complain about what they don't know. And if you can add capabilities to the tool that they're already familiar with, even in terms of UX and UI and how to use the controllers and the buttons and making sure everything works the same, your users are going to be happier, they're going to complain less, and you're going to have fewer complaints because you're able to recycle a lot of those elements. This is immediately going to eliminate that, where do I find this feature or this button on the new tool? Because they're going to be familiar with it. Security and data protection. So this is huge, and I'm not going to go into the list of all the recent vendors that have security breaches. Equifax, I think, is the latest one in the news. It happens, and it's a bad thing when data happens. These vendors, the platform vendors, really kind of bet their reputations on their ability to secure and protect your data. Leave that liability on their side. If you're doing your own system, if you're trying to do your own integrations, you've got middleware, ETL tools, those are all risk points for exfil of data or hacking. And having it in this platform, it makes it a lot easier to protect and secure. Watch out for having all your eggs in a single basket. Again, if we lose that one critical system that had all our data, let's hope as IT professionals that we took the time to back it up. Critical other benefit is receiving immediate value. So we know how long it takes to implement a new tool. Anyone implemented a tool this year yet, a new solution? And between the RFP and the demos and doing your own diligence, I mean, how long does that take? Months. If you have the ability to go to an app store and click download, you have that application now. That lag is gone. That lead time is eliminated. You have immediate benefit. The users get to use it, and it's there. You just cut out a lot of steps and a whole lot of time. I have Sonic here because the character was fast. He was known for speed. I really kind of wanted to use Link from Legend of Zelda on this one, because this equivalent sword would be like starting your quest in the Legend of Zelda with the 2 rows of hearts and the Master Sword. It would have made things a whole lot easier. You wouldn't have to go through the game and go through all the steps to get those power-ups. You have these power-ups immediately. And there's Link, talking about simplifying vendor management. So just like consolidating systems and having fewer systems, it's easier to manage fewer vendors, fewer meetings. Who doesn't like less meetings, especially on a Friday? We're trying to fly home. We talk about the single throat to choke or the single chest to poke. This is generally a good thing. A couple caveats on this one. So this makes it harder to switch platforms. As your companies invest in these platforms and expand their capabilities, it makes it harder to change that platform down the road. And the vendors know that. They call it stickiness. And they want to make their platforms, their tools, as sticky as possible. They want to know, kind of anecdotally here, a company like ServiceNow wants, when somebody says, hey, we're going to move to Sharewell, 15 hands to go up and say, then we need to think about all these other applications that are built onto the platform, and we need to have longer meetings and more people in meetings because it's going to be a major impact to the company for us to change platforms like that. And this happens, and they're playing it at hand. So understand they're doing it and watch out for it. And watch out for the risk of vendor failure. If it's a large publicly traded company, these platforms are probably not going to go away. You probably have some degree of security, but it's something to watch out for. New startups, smaller players, they could go away, especially in the SaaS model where you're not really owning the software. You don't control the bits. Be aware of it. Automatic integrations is huge. So the hands that went up earlier about people installing a new platform within the year or a new system within the year, did you have to integrate it with anything? And doesn't that take a while? Whether you're doing web services, CSV, ODBC, JDBC, database connections, it's a pain to have data from one system talk to the other. With this platform model, the data exists at the platform layer. And sometimes the apps have their own specific data, but oftentimes the data can be shared across applications, between applications, and it eliminates a lot of the need for integration. This is literally the equivalent of being able to get the Master Sword in Zelda and then give it to Mario in Super Mario Brothers. So we're maybe taking payroll information in the same platform and reconciling that with annual compensation review. No need for integration. This really gets you big, bold, highlighted letters. This is incredibly powerful. An authoritative single source of truth. Because how often is there competing data in our companies? And what's the real system? Because they don't match up. Authoritative single system of truth. And we're really only ever going to be able to get there. The data warehouse model promised us that, but through these platforms. The ease of the procurement process. I've spent the past couple of years at vendors, and I know how this works, and I can't imagine it's fun for the buyer side to go through the process of procuring, because even once IT blesses the solution that they want, and they say, this is the one for us, it meets our requirements, we like Chris's tie, we're going to buy this one, you still have to go through legal, procurement, somebody's got to sign the master license agreement, and it's a pain, it's a slow process. Click to buy. Literally like what you can do on the iPhone App Store. You go to the app stores in these platforms, see what you want, click to buy, and it's right there. Generally, the negotiations have been pre-done, so you're going to have an existing master license agreement with the vendor, so you can buy things through the store easily, and even mechanically, they're going to have things like where to send the invoice, which from a regular purchase process could be a couple emails back and forth. It eliminates, again, several steps. To keep the theme going, when we talk about the hardware side of the consoles and the software side, there are a few advantages that just exist in software that just plain don't exist in hardware. As we take this analogy back and tell our colleagues, keep these things in mind. And the first is the ability to have simultaneous apps. So you could have one cartridge in your Nintendo. It wasn't hot swappable, you had to restart. You can have any number of applications running in these platforms. And that ties in the fact that there's multi-users and multi-players at any given time. So it's industrial grade, if you will. A lot of things going back and forth, a lot of simultaneous transactions. The data interoperability we've touched on with the integrations, and that's really the ability to take something like the Master Sword in Zelda and give it to Mario. You can take service desk data, tie it into the vendor system, purchase order system. It's already there. It's already in the platform. You generally will have security controls built into the platform to be able to make sure that certain data is not available to people who don't have the appropriate role, because we don't want to give all data to all users. If we're using the same tool for service desk and employee HR management, we don't want our service desk people to see maybe salary negotiation or vacation request information. You can segment it. Separate upgrades, again, something that just can't exist in hardware. When you had Nintendo and you wanted the Super Nintendo upgrade, you needed to get a whole new piece of hardware. The platforms are software, so they can be upgraded, and they are upgraded, and they're upgraded independently of the applications themselves. This is important because as there's more third-party vendors and they're providing new capabilities to the applications, we don't want that to interfere with the platform, and we don't want to have to wait to upgrade our facilities tool until the platform comes around to releasing their upgrade. And that split is very advantageous. Remote access, I don't think we need to dwell on too much. We all know that it's in the data center or in the cloud, and we can access these platforms from anywhere in the world, including from our mobile devices. And expansion. because the vendors that control the platforms are adding their own capabilities all the time, there's going to be new features that exist in the future version that the current apps don't even know about yet, that don't even exist yet. So it's really growing with you. And they're under every incentive to grow their platforms and make them better over time because it's a SaaS model and you can cancel monthly, annually, or whatever agreement you've worked out with them. So I talked about the video game analogy and how this model with platforms played into that. This has happened before. So this happened, if we can imagine for a second, the mid part of last century, and maybe we worked at a university and they had a mainframe that provided critical business functions for the university. And when they wanted to add capabilities, what did they do? They put a sign on the computer sign store and said, "Programmer wanted." We need a tool for time off requests. They'd hire somebody, the programmer would write the specs, it would work, they'd roll it out to the university, and then the programmer would leave after a few years, and the university would be left with this spaghetti code that some old programmer developed for this critical business system, time off requests that everybody's using, and they've got to pay to maintain. That model went away. By the 1980s and 1990s, it evolved into the boxes of shrink-wrapped plastic software that you could buy from the store, that worked in hand with the client-server model. And I have MS-DOS there because MS-DOS operating system on an IBM-compatible PC is itself a platform. And that shrink-wrapped box client-server model lasted until we got to the current cloud era today. So this model has happened before. It's happened before just in programming. So just in terms of website development, when we needed a website, we used to have to go out and write the HTML, the CSS, JavaScript, or we'd hire somebody to write the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript. And then we were stuck maintaining this spaghetti code for years. And that model moved to the content management system model, like the Drupals, Joomlas, and WordPresses, where we installed this content management platform. We just went into that tool, we added the pages, we changed the theme, added the graphics. They did their own upgrades, and everything was easy. And that's further evolved to putting the content management in the cloud itself. So we're not even installing WordPress. We're just going to WordPress.com. This happened with infrastructure. You know, 3 levels of cloud: software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. There used to be rows of computers in the basement. Rows and rows of 1U, 2U devices that somebody had to install and crawl around and go to the drop floor and put them in. And then we converted those, and with each machine, we had dozens or hundreds of virtual machines running on VMware. And now we don't even have that computer or that hypervisor. We just go to Amazon EC2, Azure, Oracle. We click, new Linux box, and we get a URL on how to log into the Linux box. So the same kind of platform model has happened. I did have a slide at following this, talking it's not just about technology, and tying into Mark's point about making things from scratch. But I felt the processed food at the end kind of had a negative connotation as opposed to starting with fresh ingredients and going through to packaged foods and then TV dinners. So I pulled that out because it had a negative connotation where most of these do not, but did tie in. So where do we go next? How do we plan? How do we go forward? So the title of my presentation today was, I forget what was my title. How platform tools have changed the service desk. I didn't say just enterprise software. I said service desk. Because what I think is more likely to happen, most likely to happen for all these platforms that are out there, Salesforce, Mendix, OutSystems, IBM, Pega, it's probably going to be one of the vendors that starts in IT, because that's the audience that really understands this concept, where they're going to come from. I'll use just a couple examples of vendors here. This is not everyone, but ServiceNow is the ServiceNow store. Cherwell has what they call MAPS, mergeable applications. BMC has an entire solution called RemedyForce, which in itself runs on the Salesforce platform. Even niche players like EasyVista getting this with their Service App Store. It's probably one of these service desk vendors, the ones that we play with, that we deal with, that is most likely to become the authoritative platform of record for enterprises, because we get it, we understand it. What else do we need to know to prepare? We need to understand the player two, and that's the vendor. So understand, whenever you're talking to a vendor in a negotiation with a vendor looking to buy something from a vendor, they see the platform as the Holy Grail. They see it as the proverbial high ground, and they're going to fight for that high ground. It is strategic for them. It's strategic both to block out the competition, but also to remain sticky and to preserve their revenue, their subscription reoccurring model. So every time you are talking to a vendor, understand they're looking at you as a potential platform user. Even if you started the conversation talking about incident, change, service catalog, not whatever. They want to be your platform. You have to make sure you invest in the right platform, and it's right for you. There's pros and cons to each. Do some due diligence, because it's very hard to change this after the fact. You also need to understand what I call the procurement ABCs. And this is literally in the order you go. ABC, adopt, buy, create, in that order. So if you have a solution and you have a new need for a new business capability, if you have the solution, adopt it. Adopt it to do what matches your need. If you can't do that, look to buy what somebody else has already done, already built. And only then create it, roll it yourself. Too often in IT, we think we're just going to do it on our own. We're going to roll our own. We're going to do it in-house. Don't do that. It's easier, cheaper, and faster to do it in this order. Adopt, buy, create, ABCs of procurement, in that order. You need to understand about what I call pan-platform functionality. So I'll use the example of Madden 2005. This is just one game that was available on half a dozen platforms, half a dozen gaming systems. So were you loyal to the franchise or to the platform? Would you go out and buy an Xbox because it had an exclusive title? Or were you just going to get the Madden game because you already have the Xbox and you really wanted a different football game, but that's the one on your platform? Where are your loyalties? Is it the platform level or is it the franchise level? Will you pick a platform because you really want the one particular app that it has? Will you bring Salesforce in because you are in love with Aptus? These are important questions to ask yourselves and to ask other teams, because they'll be using these franchises for their business functions as well. You know, when I got my Nintendo, it came with one cartridge, and that cartridge had 2 games on it: Super Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt. Nintendo was then more than happy to sell you additional capabilities. They were more than happy to sell you Legend of Zelda, Metroid, Punch-Out, Track and Field. You know, they had their whole host of software. But then you could go beyond that. And if you wanted new different games like Contra, Final Fantasy, Mega Man, there were other third-party vendors that were creating games for Nintendo. That's really where the expansion took off. And that's why Nintendo exists today and Atari doesn't. Because Atari didn't have the third-party community that Nintendo did. It's why Sega doesn't exist as a platform today, and Nintendo does. You can still get a Nintendo Switch. So these third-party players, this third-party ecosystem, the independent software vendors who are going to build apps on your platform, on the platform, it is critical. It's important. When you're looking at a new platform, look who's building on it as well. Tying into that, you have the platform developers. You have the logos of the just third-party makers. And I'm sure everyone walked through the expo and saw equivalent logos for IT vendors. Who was at the top and who was at the bottom? Who of the logos that you walked past were platform developers who were built on somebody else's platform? The lines are often unknown, and the line is blurring. This is us. This is me. This is who I work for. So Stave is a third-party vendor. So we transform legacy business And everything we do is on the ServiceNow platform today. Just our background, our history, we have a lot of experience in ServiceNow. The founding team, myself, we're previous ServiceNow players. And we help companies expand. But we're one of these third-party developers, so I'm practicing what I'm preaching right here, talking about what we're doing. Kind of a recap and summary as we end and Fusion ends successfully. It's IT professionals, it's our job to deliver services. We do that through solutions. We do that using technology. And the goal is to deliver value to the business. That's most important. That's why IT exists. Don't ever get away from that. The way we deploy our technology and solutions to provide value to the business is changing, and it's changing into this platform model. This is inevitable. We need to understand it, embrace it, learn what the new skills are going to be to fit in, and how to be successful going forward and providing value to our organizations. So I'd like to thank you. I did bring, everyone is a winner, but one person does get to win this little prize. This is a Bluetooth retro controller. So if you have a system or a game that plug Bluetooth into, old Super Nintendo style, just drop your business card in this, and we're going to raffle it off. All right. Sounds like there's no other questions, but thank you for coming to the session. Thank you, Mark. And game on. Thank you.